Well, first of all, I would argue that the space beyond the European Union's external borders is there to stay. That is to say, conflicts, territorial, civil, whatever you have in the neighborhoods, they are there to stay. Economic underdevelopment, the challenge of failed states, new emerging orders of governance, etc., etc. All this multitude of challenges that you have in our neighborhood, they are there to stay, quite likely at least, I would argue. And that as such implies that the European Union needs to have an institutionalized, well thought through policy framework that is addressing all these many issues over the next couple of years. The problem, however, is that now that we are commemorating, celebrating, if you wish, the 15th anniversary of the European Neighbourhood Policy, arguably the European Union has not been particularly successful in addressing many of these issues that we witness on a daily basis beyond our external borders. And that, of course, has led many to argue that there is no future for this very policy framework that has been put in place and de facto revised already on a number of occasions. And the very fact that it has been revised on so many occasions also substantiates that very argument in the sense that it has been argued that the European Union simply has been unable over all these years to put an effective foreign and security policy framework in place that could tackle efficiently and effectively all these many challenges. So to cut a long story short, I would say if the European Union, and thus the member states in particular, were able to hammer out a consensus as to what this ENP is supposed to be about, that is to say, a means to an end or the end itself, then arguably the framework as such would have a future. In other words, it needs to bestow upon this framework a vision, a clear end goal. That is to say, neighbors have to be put in a situation where they understand what they can really expect from this framework. What are the benchmarks? What are the incentives? What are the red lines? That's the first point. The second point in that particular context is, I think, focus. The European Union needs to define, and I think that is very overdue, what it wants to focus on, what it wants to concentrate on, and rather downgrade its ambitions, I would argue. Obviously, in a number of neighborhood partner countries, it is present, very present in fact, does have a role in a large number of policy fields and issue areas. However, all too often, it is not focused enough and doesn't have the capabilities to play an effective role in all of these policy fields and issue areas. So potentially, arguably, I would say less is more. Would it really make sense for the European Union to participate in conflict resolution mechanisms such as the Minsk Group, via its member states, for instance, or the 5+2? I'm not sure, as long as it doesn't have the capabilities. At this very moment in time, and I will end on that very note, the European Union is just about to end its reflection process on the Eastern Partnership, which in a way demonstrates that the European Union is a responsive actor, which is time and again trying to rethink what it actually is doing vis-à-vis the neighborhoods. On the other hand, and I think I alluded to that point already before, it also demonstrates that up until this very day, the European Union and its member states have failed to put in place a framework that is sustainable and can effectively address all the many challenges that you find in the neighborhoods.